I will not deny it, I have a very strange gaming history. I was born in 1988, my first system owned was a Game Boy Color back in 1998, and my first console was a GameCube in 2003. Since then, I have ferociously brushed up on my video game history and titles that I knew I had to play, but naturally some classic franchises have fallen along the wayside for one reason or another. So not only am I here to make these public knowledge, but to put these out as a test to myself to finally get around to experiencing them fully, not just in bits and pieces or not at all. That said, I am Youko, and these are my top 10 games I must play. The Pikmin franchise. So for Show Me Your News, I've put on a video game awards show at the end of the year for the past couple years. One of the categories last year was most likely to be lost on Yoko's To playlist. And wouldn't you know it, Pikmin won that fan vote. It's been a running podcast gag that I should play them, and it's something I hope to correct, outside of experiencing it for an hour during our recent 5th anniversary. And after all, with Pikmin 3 looking so good on Wii U, it's about time I play those games. Though I've never really liked the real-time strategy and time mechanics, I think it would be wise of me to take in Miyamoto's latest original IP. The Castlevania franchise. How have I never tackled any of these games? Well, that's a good question. The original is a classic which certainly falls into the phrase NES hard, and I don't think much needs to be said on Castlevania 2. But I think the game I need to start off with is Super Castlevania 4. From the reimagining of the original to the music, it's a classic. Not to mention there are all the great handheld titles, Lords of Shadow, and not to mention its upcoming sequel and 3DS game, Mirrors of Fate. In fact, just talking about it is making me want to slay Dracula. The Resident Evil franchise. Never played a single one, and that's mostly because survival horror and I just don't get along too well. But man, sometimes as a gamer, you just gotta suck it up, and that's what I need to do with Resident Evil 4. The way I see it, top GameCube game lists typically have 4 games near its top spot. Super Smash Bros. Melee, played it and loved it. The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker, beat it and loved it. Metroid Prime, beat it and loved it. And finally, Resident Evil 4. What have I got to lose? Oh right, my composure. Good. I know I may be the audience that Capcom targets RE5 and the upcoming 6 towards, as I've pre-ordered the anthology for PS3, but it's high time I experience this classic title and franchise. Chrono Trigger. Since I finally played my first Final Fantasy game this year in 6, the next JRPG I must tackle is the other heralded Squaresoft SNES classic. And it's strange, for as much acclaim as people give Chrono Trigger, I only hear bits and pieces of it, thus limiting my knowledge. Sure, the music is legendary, the characters were designed by renowned manga artist Akira Toriyama, and I'm pretty sure I heard the spoiler on what happens to one of the characters. Xenoblade Chronicles is also pushing for that next RPG I must play spot, but I've got to give it to this time-traveling classic. The Devil May Cry franchise. It's tough to beat what some say is the best action game of all time. I even bought the Devil May Cry HD collection because I know I have to play these games. Well, many say 2 isn't that good, but the consensus is that 1 and 3 rock just like Dante, baby. Killer moves, intense action, great music, I need to experience it all. Plus we have Devil May Cry 4 that I've heard some spoilers about. And honestly, with DMC coming out next year, maybe it will make sense why fans are irked by this Dante after I've played the originals. Or maybe they aren't thinking that it's a prequel or origin story or whatever Capcom has planned. Anyway, time for me to slay some demons. Super Metroid. I suppose this all goes back to my inexperience with the 8 and 16-bit era, not to mention with the now dubbed Metroidvania format. But my first Metroid experience was in 3D with Prime on the GameCube, and that trilogy is amazing, especially when you happen to own the now out-of-print Wii Trilogy disc. But yes, Super Metroid is the gold standard for the franchise, and there's really no getting around what happens. The bosses, the story, and especially the ending. It's not like Other M helped with that one. Experiencing the game for myself is a must for such a renowned, groundbreaking title from Nintendo. The BanjoKazooie franchise. Oh, that's right, if the last game didn't make you say, "He hasn't played that?" then this one surely will. My time with the Bear and the Bird was extremely brief, as I wasn't really committed to trying it when I did. I found the tutorial level on Spiral Mountain to be too long, and I stopped before entering Gruntilda's lair. I know, one of the parts that cements you in the experience, right? This series pops up on so many lists though, so it must be doing something correctly. And hey, if I enjoyed 3D platformers like the Super Mario Galaxy games, I think BanjoKazooie and Tooie are worth a more dedicated try. But yeah, definitely not nuts and bolts. Mega Man X. You could put the original Mega Man franchise in this spot as well, but wow, when I played 2, I was so bad. Seriously, that was shameful. So when everyone raves about how amazing the game Mega Man X is, well, it makes me want to give it another go. And it's not just lemons or riding on cars, but it's that music, that clever level design, and the narrative about growth and becoming a hero. I think I'd have to really enjoy the original before I play any of the X sequels, especially when public opinion is mixed on a lot of them. But for this list's sake, the original is a must. Shadow of the Colossus. When I made a list of 5 games to play at the beginning of this year for my podcast, the Team Youko Classic topped it. And granted, while I haven't gotten around to it yet, I cannot ignore the importance of experiencing this title. The controls, the music, the creativity, and scale of the Colossi, it sure seems incredible. The only issue is, like several games on this list, I generally know how it ends. In fact, spoilers for games this well known are pretty tough to avoid when you're trying to catch up on years outside of the gaming community. Now, I don't think I would enjoy Eco, escort missions are typically miserable for me, but Shadow of the Colossus is one game I need to experience. Alright, before we get to number 1, let's do a quick recap of my top 10 games I must play. Number 10, Pikmin franchise. Number 9, Castlevania franchise. Number 8, Resident Evil franchise. Number 7, Chrono Trigger. Number 6, Devil May Cry franchise. Number 5, Super Metroid. Number 4, BanjoKazooie franchise. Number 3, Mega Man X. And number 2, Shadow of the Colossus. Now it's time for... Number 1. The Super Mario Bros. Franchise. If there is one kind of game I typically struggle at, it is the 2D platformer. And sure, that may be simply because of my lack of experience. So while I've beaten but not completed both Super Mario Galaxy games, those are 3D games which allow for more options and flexibility for the player. And the simple fact is, if I grew up with either of the 2 original gaming icons, it was Sonic as opposed to Mario. So my first Mario experience was Super Mario Advance. You know, the port of 2, so take that for what it's worth. The simple truth is, I need to man up, learn some platforming skills, and take down some of these classics. Super Mario Bros., 3, World, Yoshi's Island, New Wii, let's go Shiggy. It's time for me to finally experience some of your biggest gaming contributions. Well, that does it for this SMYN Top 10. I hope you've enjoyed it. Please feel free to leave a comment regarding what franchises you think are must to play. Now, over time, we'll have different people make lists to submit for posting on this channel, so you can make a video of your own, or you can send a script for me to read and edit while still giving you all the credit to smyntop10@gmail.com. Also, let me know future topics you want to see, and make sure to subscribe and follow us on Facebook and Twitter. With that, I'm Youko, and we'll see you at the next Top 10.